Let's talk Throne of Glass. Where to begin? Do you do the tandem read? Let's go, because these are very, very heavy. The Throne of Glass series by Sarah J.Maas is honestly one of the best book series that I've ever read. It only comes second to my ACOTAR, which you guys know. I love ACOTAR. It holds a very special place in my heart. But I don't know about you guys, I found the thought of starting Throne of Glass really daunting. There's 8 books, and these are big books. Like, look at the size of these books. This is almost 1,000 pages. Like, I'm sorry. And there's also a lot of talk online about a different reading order, tandem reads. I was a bit like, do you know what? I'm not quite ready to delve into that just yet. Give me some time. But it's worth going into, because I promise you these books are so, so special. So let me be your Throne of Glass guide. I finished these books early November, so I only read them a couple of months ago. And I'm going to tell you the way that I did it. I had a brilliant time reading these books. So first of all is let's talk about the reading order. Now, the reason why there's controversy with the reading order is because the main question is, do you start with Throne of Glass, or do you start with The Assassin's Blade? Now, The Assassin's Blade is a prequel to the Throne of Glass series. So the events in this book happen 1 year prior to this book. Now, this was published, I think, 3rd in the series. But a lot of people, and myself included, read it first, because I personally think when you get to the end of Crown of Midnight, you want to go straight into Terrifier, because this ends with a really big revelation and you're like, oh my god. I think if I then had to have gone back in time, I'd have been like chomping at the bit. I wouldn't have appreciated this, because this is an amazing book, but I think I'd have been racing through it. And also the things that happen in this book, you already know that they happen because they are talked about in these books. So I think to get the emotional shock and to get the emotional aspect, I think starting with this book is the way to go. So it's set into 5 short stories, but they all kind of like roll into each other, like in the timeline, but it just gives you an incredible backstory into our girl Selena and her as a person. And everything that happens in this book is linked into future books. So you kind of need to read this, because these things are going to pop up later down the line. And yeah, I think if I hadn't have read this first, I wouldn't have been as emotionally invested within the series so quickly. I think it would have taken me longer to get into. So that is what my opinion is on the reading order of Throne of Glass. Now, the next question is, do you tandem read or not? So you may be thinking, what is a tandem read? Now, this is when you read 2 books simultaneously. So it is recommended online to read book 6 and book 7 from this series. So that's Empire of Storms, which is book 6, and Tower of Dawn, which is book 7, is read them at the same time. Now, I was a bit like, oh my god. I hadn't even picked up a book in 4 years in June. And then when it came to September, I was like, what am I doing? Like, what the bloody hell is a tandem read? Like, how does that even work? But I was like, do you know what? I'm going to do it. I've never done a tandem read. I've never even heard of a tandem read. So I'm going to throw myself into it. And let me just tell you, I had a great time reading these books. I love the tandem read, and I would recommend to anyone who's reading the Throne of Glass series to do the tandem read. So here's why. So book 6, Empire of Storms, is a bloody masterpiece. I think it's potentially my favourite book of the series. So much action, romance, spice. It's just honestly 10 out of 10. Incredible. Tower of Dawn is set in the same timeline. So this is happening, these books are both happening at the same time. But this is following a lot of characters, whilst this is from Chaol's point of view as he goes into the Southern Hemisphere. And I think that if you were reading this as a standalone book, and this is what I've heard, you would potentially struggle to get through this, because it is slower. It is a slow burn. Chaol isn't a lot of people's favourite character. So I think you would struggle to get through it. But because I was reading them, like, you know, a chapter here, a chapter there, I felt like I could really appreciate Tower of Dawn because I was getting the action and the other characters from this book. And this book, the ending of this book is honestly so traumatic that I think I just struggled to get through this book being like, what the hell just happened at the end of Empire of Storms? Like, where does it go from here? Whilst obviously it was all just like mixed together, if that makes sense. What I did was I tabbed the books, and it was really quite simple to do. It looks a lot more complicated than what you think, but I basically just went onto Google and Googled Throne of Glass tandem read, and I found a picture. I'll pop it up here, which is basically a guide of what chapters to read and when. I ordered some tabs off Amazon, and then what you do is, which one do you start with? Put a tab at the start of a chapter where I'd have to change, and this is like Empire of Storm chapter 6, so I'd know, right, okay, let's move on to this one. And then yeah, it would just be a little marker to move on to the next book. Really, really simple, really easy to follow. I didn't get confused. It was just really seamless. And I honestly just had a great time reading these two books together. Everybody thought I'd officially lost the plot. All of my friends were like, you are reading two books at the same time. Like, they were like, honestly, what is going on with you? But I was like, do you know what? Don't knock it, because I had a great time. But all in all, Throne of Glass is an incredible series. And I know it seems daunting. There's 8 books. Like we said, they're big, they're chunky. But these are incredible. The story within this book, like honestly, I can't understand how Sarah has the brain space and the imagination to create such a world. Like, not only has she created ACOTAR, but she's done Throne of Glass. It's absolutely incredible. Like, I don't get it. She is an absolute master. What's the right word? Mastermind? Is that the right word? She is an absolute queen. Like, I honestly, her brain. But yeah, the story in this book is absolutely incredible. Now, if you're wondering, do I read Throne of Glass? I'm a little bit worried because there's not as much romance in it. I'm a romance girl. Let me tell you, I feel you. I felt like I read a lot of basically shitty romance, fantasy romance books on Kindle Unlimited before I read Throne of Glass. So I felt like I kind of got all the romance and spice out of my system. So I would recommend doing something like that, because you'll be a bit like, oh my God, I cannot read any more Fae spice. So I felt like I kind of overexerted myself on that kind of level, and then went into this, and I was like, this is actually quite a nice little kind of break from it all. But I definitely thought that there is still romance within this book. There's snippets of romance to just keep you going, to just tide you over. And then the real big romance doesn't really hit till Queen of Shadows. And then in this book, it is like the slowest burn. It's honestly torturous. I remember texting my friend being like, I stayed up really late last night because I thought they were going to kiss, and then they bloody didn't. And then Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn, these are both romance books, these ones. Both have romance, both have spice. So yes, but they're worth the wait. But you don't actually need it. Like, I was really surprised. I thought, am I going to be bored? But the main female character in these books she's incredible. She's my new heroine. I love her. I love all of these characters so much. I was actually so scared about anything happening to any of them. Like, I feel like I was just so invested in so many of them and their stories. And I would really love for Sarah to bring out some novellas about some of these side characters, because I feel like you just get so invested, because by the time the last book comes out, they're multi-point of views. And I don't think I've ever read a book series where I've been so invested in so many characters. Like, even ACOTAR, I love those books. But there's a lot of characters which I'm really not asked about. I think probably apart from Feyre, Rhys, Nesta, Cassian, Azriel, I don't really care about the rest of them. I literally could give or take the rest of them. But in this book, I think there was only literally a couple of characters that I wasn't really bothered about. And then apart from like the villains, but all of them will have your heart, which I just feel like is very rare. Yeah, let me know. Have you guys read Throne of Glass? Are you going to read Throne of Glass? Please do let me know. And if you do start reading it, let me know how you get on, because honestly, I would love to hear your thoughts. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you did enjoy it, and please subscribe to my channel for lots of other more book videos. And yeah, I'll see you soon in my next video. Thanks for watching.